Did we make a joke last time?
We did.
Sorry.
All right, we are live. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 10th Litchfield School Board meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. We're going to start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have a public hearing on our agenda this evening, and this is under RSA 19820C. So the public hearing is regarding the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund and the use of $40,371 from that expendable trust fund for FY24 elementary expenses. The board, during our encumbrance conversation at our last meeting in June, talked about the use of operating budget to cover those expenses or to utilize the expendable trust fund. The board made the decision to have a public hearing on the use of expendable trust fund. So what I'd like to do is open it up for public input at this time for public comment on the use of $40,371 to cover elementary expenses from that trust fund. You could just state your name and address, please.
Hi, Ronald Blanis, 15 Riverview Circle. I watched the school board meeting where you proposed this, and my question is really one of not whether what you're proposing is a good idea or not. I'm just, my question is, I don't understand what the trust fund is and the process that you're doing, and it's moving into the capital reserve funds. So my request is to have an explanation of what the trust fund is and what it's used for and how it's used. And is there a balance in that is available for other things? I'm not questioning what you're doing. I'm just, my question is more related to process, and then really specifically, as you know, I'm on the FIC, we're looking, for solutions for GMS. So is there money in the trust fund that would potentially be available to be additionally moved into the capital reserve funds and that sort of, so it's.
I'll have an answer.
Okay.
That'd be okay. So the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund was established on March 10th of 2020.
Okay.
And it is specifically for the purpose of funding the study, planning, and cost of new construction or renovation of existing facilities in the Litchfield School District as recommended by the Capital Planning Committee. Right, so this was a warrant that was set up, voter approved. And within that Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund, as of the end of May, we have $257,600 in that account.
Okay.
Plus the addition of $125,000, which will be added from our last year's operating budget, which ended on June 30th, voter approved to move $125,000 into that account as well.
Okay.
So that transfer hasn't occurred yet,
Okay.
right, but it will. And what we're proposing is, because there was $40,371 of direct associated costs over fiscal year 24 for the elementary project, to use the fund that was established with money in it for that purpose.
Okay. And is the trust fund then somewhere that money can be banked and accumulated
Yes.
over time?
Yes.
Is that the purpose of the trust fund
Yes,
then?
exactly correct.
But it takes a vote, it takes a warrant article for us to deposit money into that account.
Okay, so it would, just trying to think through how this works. So each time you want to add money, it has to go to a vote?
Yep.
It will be a vote in March typically at town meeting.
Okay.
Where there will be a warrant article with, to the voters establishing, if voter approved, for us to transfer money at end of year into that account.
And in the past few years, that number has been up to $125,000,
Yeah.
depending on what our year-end fund balances
And
are.
that's the warrant article we saw
Correct.
last year?
Yep.
Okay,
And you've seen it, it's been the last few years.
Right,
So as
so-
the town authorizes us
Yep.
through warrant to
Yep.
deposit money into there, we bring the balance up. And then in order to access the money and spend the money out of the account, we have to have a public hearing like this
To do so.
to do anything.
To move it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, just, sorry if I'm belaboring the point, I'm just trying to understand. It seems a little, so if, with this next transfer, you, in the trust fund, they'll be close to $200,000, is that kind of a rough
There'll be
number?
200 and I'll call it $10,000.
Okay,
Plus the incoming transfer of 125,000 on top of that.
okay, so in the next year, there's
300.
almost $325,000 of accessible money that could be tapped into for things
Correct.
related to studies or actual specific improvements or
Yes.
different
Yes.
things. Okay,
That is the intent of that account.
okay, fine, thank you, I appreciate that.
Sure. Happy to help.
Chances are, if you don't understand it, somebody else watching doesn't understand it, so it's definitely a good refresher to be able to go over it and make sure people know where their money is and how
Yeah.
it's being, the process for spending it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right. Any other public care to address the board on the transfer? Hearing and seeing none. Do we need a motion to then withdraw that money from the?
I think we do, yeah.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to withdraw $40,371 from the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund.
So moved?
We have a motion by Mr. Plansky,
Second?
second by Ms. Ames. Additional discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? That motion carries 4-0-0. And with that, I will now close our public hearing, and we'll return to our regularly scheduled board meeting at this time. So moving on with our agenda for this evening, I'd like to, I guess we're on review and a revision of agenda, right? So does the board have any changes to tonight's agenda?
I do not.
No.
Okay.
May I just jump in for 1 second,
Yes, please.
just so we get into a routine? Since we sent out the agenda to the board on Friday, I did add just a couple updates to my report. Is that something you want me to notify you of now
Yeah,
when we do that, or when we get there?
We'll cover that underneath the
Perfect, thank
superintendent updates. But let me take a moment before we move into consent any further to officially welcome our new superintendent. I know many of us on the board and within the school district have been working with Superintendent O'Connell now for the past few months in transitioning, but it's nice to see Superintendent O'Connell officially sitting here at the table for the first time.
Thank
Welcome
you.
again.
Thank you, I'm
Officially
very
at the
excited to sit
helm.
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, next up on the agenda is consent items. Is there anything from the consent agenda the board would like to move into our meeting this evening?
No.
Nope. Okay, just as a reminder, Budget Committee is not meeting during this month, and we'll pick that up in August. All right, moving into summary of non-public actions from June 26, 2024. Mrs. Ames motion to approve the May 15th, 2024 non-public minutes. Mr. Plansky seconded that motion, and that motion carried 4-0-1 with Mr. Shoemaker abstaining. Ms. Ames motion to approve the nomination of Tony Ramos as LMS CHS Athletic Director for $91,000. Mr. Cutter seconded that motion, and that motion passed 5-0-0. Ms. Ames motion to approve the nomination of Don Florino as a PT reading teacher for $40,580, 50% salary. Mr. Cutter seconded that motion. That motion passed 5-0-0. Ms. Ames motion to approve the nomination of Jennifer Costarellis as a DW district-wide occupational therapist, part-time at 40% for $20,414. Mr. Cutter seconded that motion. That motion carried 5-0-0. Ms. Ames motion to approve the resignation of Jamie Fallhaber as CHS mental health clinician. Mr. Cutter seconded that motion. That motion passed 5-0-0. We were busy that evening.
We were.
All right, I think that covers it for summary of non-public actions, and we'll move into presentations and recognition, which at this point I believe there are none. Okay, we also have the student representative report on tonight's agenda. I know we have the link that's handy that the board received in advance. Any questions on the student representative report or any updates from the superintendent?
No, I think we might, I got to talk with Jake a little bit today, Principal Hess, about that report, make sure that we get it all lined up. We have some ideas of revamping it a little bit once we get back from the school year and stuff with the students' help, so.
All right, that sounds great. Now we have community comment on agenda items. So this is where the community is welcome to come share any commentary on our agenda items, and commentary is limited to 3 minutes per person. There is a second round for community input at the end, which is open to any items. Any community comment this evening? I'm seeing nobody coming up, so we'll close community comment, and we'll move into correspondence, and I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Ames, please.
Thank you very much. It was actually a quiet stretch, which is always nice and not nice because we always want to hear from people. But on June 26th, Ms. Harrison emailed the board and the superintendent to request to add kindergarten and grade 1 enrollment numbers to the agenda. That was that evening. Because I had already done correspondence, that one was not included, so that's why I'm just saying it now. On June 27th, Crown Trophy sent an email, and the board was copied on it regarding an outstanding invoice for trophies, and that was taken care of by Mr. Knight and the coach involved for those trophies. On June 28th, Jan Sullivan sent an email circulating draft June 26th public and non-public minutes. We had a gap, and then on July 5th, Renee Burgess emailed to the board the July 10th agenda, and there were responses from myself and Mr. O'Connell. On July 8th, Ann Inamorati emailed the board circulating 2 manifests for review before the July 10th meeting. Mr. Cutter responded, and then Miss Inamorati responded to that. On July 8th, Mr. O'Blenis emailed the board with a question regarding the public hearing that was held earlier tonight. There were responses from Mr. Cutter. On July 9th, there was a Google request for editor privileges from Jason LaMountain, who I believe is on the committee, regarding a facilities improvement committee document. And then, but the whole board was copied on that. And then July 10th, Mr. Cutter emailed the board to remind us of a public hearing tonight to start the meeting and circulating documents that we would need related to that hearing. And as far as I know, that brings us up to date as of 9:30 this morning.
All right, thank you very much for that. All right, we'll move into general business, and I will turn it over to Superintendent O'Connell.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. I want to introduce 2 of the newest team members here at the SAU, Dr. Sarah Taylor, who's our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and Sarah Pooler, who's our Director of Student Services. I'm going to ask them to come up here to the table and then just share a little bit about themselves and their background, and kind of the work that they're going to do here as part of the district. We kept it nice and simple. We're just hiring Sarahs from now
Yeah, I
on.
think that makes
Make it really easy for everybody.
Yeah,
so.
to make it easier or really confusing.
Yeah.
We'll decide as we go along.
Everyone's going to change
Both
their
have
name to
an H,
Sarah.
so that helps.
With an H.
With an H.
Can we start?
Sure.
Okay. So it's so nice to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to take on this role. Just a little bit of background. We'll keep it brief. I've been in education for a little over 15 years now. I got my bachelor's degree in education, and then when I started teaching, I really developed a love for curriculum. So that led me down a path to get my master's and doctorate in curriculum instruction and assessment. And I taught in elementary and middle school, doing a variety of different things: classroom teacher, reading, writing specialist, you name it. I probably did it at one point. And then for the last 5 years, I was the director of literacy in Derry, which had many different hats, as you can probably imagine. So lots of development in curriculum of all kinds, and I really got to kind of hone my skills as a district level administrator. And when this opportunity came up, I was very excited to kind of branch out and take the helm of all of curriculum. So very excited for that. This last week and a half, I've really been delving into what's been happening, where things are at, trying to get a feel for things. I've sent out emails today to each building admin to meet with them and get a sense of where they're at and what they might need in terms of support to try to develop some goals moving forward. So yeah, and we're doing grants and all kinds of things, just hitting the ground running.
That's great.
Excited.
Welcome again.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So my name is Sarah Pooler. This will be my 17th year in education. I've always worked in special ed my entire time, and I can't imagine doing anything else, honestly. So I spent the first 15 years of my career in Hudson. For 10 years, I was a special ed teacher at the middle school level. I pretty much mostly taught 7th, but also had some time in 6th and 8th. And then I became the building level special ed coordinator at the middle school in 2018 and held that position for 5 years, where I learned a lot, about the special ed process, kind of why I did the things I did as a teacher. I learned a lot about the paperwork, the law, and things like that. And then in 2023, decided that I kind of just wanted to branch out and came to Litchfield. This past year, I was the 5th grade special ed teacher at the middle school. But really became excited when this opportunity opened. I think my knowledge and expertise will be really useful, and I'm really looking to learn a lot more. And even just in the week and a half I've been here, I've already feel like I've learned a ton more about this job and things involved with special ed, and even things just involved with student services as well. But I'm really excited. I'm really have been in all 3 buildings so far, just to kind of check on ESY and see how that's going so far. But I'm really looking forward to being here and to working with everybody.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So we just wanted to put names and faces for everyone here on the board and for those who are watching at home.
Appreciate the text.
Yeah, it's gonna.
Help it out too. Yep.
Yeah, we've already decided people are going to call us the other, and that's whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I've already been referring
It's
to them
fine,
as the
okay.
Sarahs. Can we make sure we have these Sarahs on the agenda and stuff? So we're really excited for Dr. Taylor and Ms. Pooler for the work that they're going to do, and already they're doing a great job. Me and Sarah Taylor have been talking some curriculum stuff already. It's nice. She's got the elementary, middle school background. I have the high school background, so we're sharing some of the different things from our worlds. And Sarah Pooler's jumped right in with some special ed stuff. I've had to come to her with some questions right away, and thankfully her expertise already is paying dividends. So really excited for our team here, and thank you guys for coming tonight and joining us and introducing yourselves. So that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Nice to meet all of you.
Yes, nice to meet you guys.
Excited to have you.
All right, next up is the monthly enrollment comparison.
Yeah, so obviously it's been something that comes up every month, the enrollment. Specifically, last meeting you discussed the kindergarten numbers and the first grade enrollment numbers as we think about staffing for next year. So they've remained stagnant from that June meeting. There's been no changes in the kindergarten enrollment or that first grade enrollment. It is 74 and 85 respectively in those. But from that last meeting, I know there was some discussion on if we were going to make a move towards like offering that 5th section of kindergarten, we should really make that decision so we can hire it and stuff. So if you want to engage in that discussion right now, I think that would be great. That, Principal Mitchell is ready for whatever. He can move tomorrow. If the decision is to kind of have that 5th kindergarten teacher, he's got an idea where the space is going to be already, and the plan is how he's going to get that hired and taken care of. And if the plan is not to go in that direction, that's okay too. They're going to move forward with how they have everything kind of set up. But if we could make and it's tough, I know, we got another month and a half here. Historically, in many school districts, you get some late enrollment with kindergarten, especially as you approach that start of the school year, and you're really at your kind of trigger number here on whether or not it would be that kind of requirement by policy or recommendation by policy to make that kind of jump. So if you could get a head start on it now, that obviously helps the process, but the numbers are not at that trigger amount right now. So I kind of looking to the board on some direction on how you want to proceed with that.
Is there a recommendation that came out of your discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend, and Principal Mitchell agrees, to move forward with the 5th kindergarten teacher right now. It helps with the planning purposes. It's in the budget already. We're not adding an additional teacher in that component. It's already in the budget as a line. He has a plan in place on how he would make those moves and everything like that, and he has the space already in place. I would anticipate, you never know. This could stay at 74. It could go down. People could move out of district, but I would imagine you're going to get closer to that 80 number once the first day of school arrives. So if you can prep for it ahead of time, I think it would be beneficial for everybody involved. So that would be my recommendation.
So I know in the enrollment we have kind of our numbers on the right-hand side here, right, for kindergarten, where we strive for an average of 18, not to exceed 19 in our policy, and the teacher trigger is 77, and currently we're at 74. Do I have that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Regardless of what's in policy, remind me, what is the state law or the state mandate
Much higher.
for kindergarten. It's
Yeah.
much higher.
Yeah, for like a maximum that you can have
It's
in a
20.
course. I
Yeah.
think it's
20.
20.
It's
And then
20.
once you get beyond 20 in those other grades, it goes up, kind of exponentially as you go from there.
Got it.
So I wasn't here last time when you had the discussion. I did watch the portion of the meeting that I wasn't here for. So my thoughts on this have been fairly consistent since I joined the board, which is that I don't understand the point of a strive for number if we're not going to use it. I understand there's a limit, and so my feeling has been that the trigger number shouldn't be when all 4 classrooms hit that number, but rather when a single classroom hits that capacity, that is when we should consider adding that 5th teacher, because right now, correct me if I'm wrong, we are going to have 3 classrooms of 18 and 1 classroom of 19 based off of the numbers that are here. Is that correct?
Right now, you would have, because you just have the 4 classes, because you
Right.
haven't had the 5th, it'd be 2 18, 2 19s right now.
And so that concerns me. I mean, I think those class of 19, we really, again, I understand we have the do not exceed. I understand that there are people that feel very, very strongly that we should follow the policy as it relates to that. But there's a reason why, and there are other factors there. First of all, I'd be taking into consideration the recommendation from the building principal and the superintendent. But secondly, we've all seen the increase in behaviors in students since COVID. That's just a reality. And so the behaviors that are going to be coming in, a lot of these kiddos who are 5 were 1 at the time of COVID, didn't have the preschool experience that other children did. They weren't, having those social, they maybe had some interaction. I mean, daycares were open, obviously, but there's a lot of people that chose to keep their kiddos home. So I guess, long story short, I've been consistent on this, and I'm gonna have to stay consistent, and if that's the recommendation from the superintendent, I would support moving forward with having that 5th teacher, and I would want to hire before August, because one of the worst things we did that I recall was when we hired a teacher literally 2 days before. We had to tell kids that had already come in and met their teacher that they were going to have a different teacher, and it was really difficult for the kiddos who were already transitioning. I'd rather plan, and so that's where I land on it. Obviously, I respect anyone who feels differently, and that's totally fine, but my vote would be to go ahead and move forward with that hire, because I do believe, also having been on the board 3 years, I've seen that number go up from July before the school starts by
Yeah.
anywhere from 3 to 5.
So do we remember what happened last year? Was it
We can find
similar
it.
situation?
We
But
started,
yeah.
we had 74 in June, and then we started the year with 83.
Yeah, we got a spike rate last night.
Yeah, and that's pretty common with the
Yeah.
kindergarten. I think we've had 1 year where we stayed at 4, but most of the years we've had to have the
Yeah.
5.
I think we're rolling the dice, right? And I think that's kind of your point, right, a bit, is we're rolling the dice. But history has shown that once we get into August and some of these homes that are now for sale close, and we have, new students coming into our district, plus we have the big unknown still of the impact of these new developments and the 170 units on 102 that are scheduled for occupancy beginning in September,
Yeah.
and plus the continued build of the 60 or so units on the north end of town. I think we need to add a teacher.
I agree. And
I agree.
in addition, I guess I didn't realize that it was already budgeted for in next year's
Yeah,
budget, so
already
it's
budgeted.
not an additional, we don't have to
not.
tap into that reserve fund. For me, it's kind of a, it's a good idea to be
The
proactive.
worst case is
in
we
this
have
space.
smaller classes for the 4, for the kids, right? So,
And I do think we're gonna find that we need it. I really
Yeah.
think, particularly with the kiddos that are coming in, we're gonna find that their behaviors, their academics just aren't gonna be necessarily where we're used to them being for that age group.
Yeah.
In part because of COVID.
So I will make a motion to follow the superintendent lead and Principal Mitchell's lead to hire the 5th kindergarten teacher for fiscal year 25.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cutter, second by Ms. Harrison. Additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400.
Thank you very much. Returning to agenda, these are more quick updates, but I want to get into maybe the habit of doing quick updates on a variety of things, especially as coming on in the last week and a half. you know, and getting everything underneath us. Some of these things we're getting like right now, like this week, so I thought I'd throw it out there before I don't see you for about a month. So CTE grade update, we got the grades from Alvern for our CTE students. They're all uploaded into transcripts and into Power School, so that should be all set. If anyone has an issue with that, please let us know, so we can address that specifically. But we've been working hard, Val's been working hard to get everything into the system there, so we should be all set with that. So that's just a quick update to make sure that that got taken care of and people were aware. We got notified here with the turn of the new fiscal year that all 3 schools will be up for facility renewals from the Department of Ed in the June of 2025. That sounds like a very far way off, but we'll do all the work for that during their school year. By that, it's making sure we have all our inspections in line, making sure that we're following all the protocols to have open school buildings and stuff and everything of that nature. It's a lot of paperwork. We're not asking to do facility adjustments or anything like that, but it is an ongoing process where we'll need up-to-date health inspections in a variety of different areas, making sure everything, we do have our fire inspections up to speed and we submit all that to the state. So that will be an ongoing thing. We'll probably, I'm hoping to partner you know, with the town and with the police and the fire to help us make sure that we're following all our protocols and they can support us in that. So I just want to provide you with that update. Andrew will probably have some signatures as we get into the June months there to sign off that we can open school in September of 2025. And my last quick update is with student handbooks. The principals and administrative teams at the buildings this week have been working on their student handbooks to align them. So I'm asking if the board would like to make that an agenda item in our August board meeting to review the student handbooks with all the updates and everything before we send them out at the beginning of the school year.
We have done that. In
Yeah.
the
That's what it
past.
looked like, yeah.
And really, we don't need to read the whole handbooks over and over again, but the ask is just to highlight what's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely.
Like the one pager that
Yeah.
covers the
Give us the
changes
clip notes.
is super helpful.
Yep.
I went to school on the Cliff Notes.
You can link the whole thing.
So we'll bring that probably at the August board meeting with that kind of highlighting of any changes and adjustments that have been happening. They've done a great job at all 3 buildings to, obviously it's not going to be the same exact language, but the same kind of themes and theory of coming through everything through all 3 schools. And these aren't on the agenda, but I just want to throw them out real quick because it kind of happened today. I sent out a school messenger message. Hopefully people got it. I'm still learning that or relearning that system. I last used it 7 or 8 years ago. And for those watching at home, there's some surveys on there if you scroll all the way down and could provide some just feedback for myself and the team as we kind of get settled in here and what's great about Litchfield and where we want to grow and everything. That would be greatly appreciated. And just a quick shout out for the AP scores. We just got that this week. Most of the courses did awesome, outstanding on the tests. We had one course that struggled a little bit. That's okay. We struggled with that same course at Bow. I don't know if it's just a New Hampshire thing, but that's all right. But they were awesome. 10 of the 13 test sections, we had qualifying percentages of 75% or higher, which is outstanding. Multiple tests that we gave had 100% qualifying across the board, which is great. Some of those numbers vary. There may have only been 2 or 3 kids taking that particular exam, but still that's outstanding. I'm a math guy. The Calc A/B scores were incredible. So I haven't met that teacher yet, but shout out to that teacher and those kids. Those scores were awesome. We've been chasing that everywhere I've been, those type of scores in calculus. So that just jumped out at me as a former math teacher. We just got them this week, so Jake's been working on reviewing history and longer trends and stuff like that. But just a quick look at them quickly. It was awesome to see as a former high school guy the success the Campbell kids had on their AP exam. So shout out to them. So, and that's it for superintendent updates. So,
All right. Thank you for highlighting.
yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Moving into business operations, I know we have the BA report from our previous, from June. I don't think there are any material updates going into tonight's meeting. Just as a reminder, the typical bigger BA report is at the second meeting of the month. We're only meeting once this month, so we'll pick it up again towards the end of August with the bigger BA update.
Manifest has 3 signatures, just so people know it's all set.
All right, thank you for that. We have the public minutes from June 26th. Did everyone have an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So made.
A motion by Ms. Ames, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Harrison.
Sure.
I heard it first.
Sorry.
Left ear works better than the
Yeah, I
right
guess so,
ear.
I guess so. Additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Those carry 4-0-0. All right, and I will turn it over to Ms. Ames for policy.
Yes, so, given the short time frame and with the holiday week, we haven't had a chance to meet yet. We should schedule something in the next month so that we have policies for the August 7th meeting, but meanwhile, for today's purposes, we have 7 policies that are here for a second read. They've already been approved for a first read, but happy to answer any questions about them, if there are any new questions since the last time we reviewed them.
Any board member questions on the policies?
Nope.
Hearing none, then I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve, for a second read, policies DFA, JFABB, JFAB, JRA, JQ, JICF, and JICFA.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Ames,
It's a
Good
lot
alphabet soup.
easier to say.
second by Ms. Harrison. Additional discussion? All those in favor of approving all the policies mentioned for a second read, please say aye.
Nice. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Those carry 4-0-0.
Well done.
Thank you. All right, and thanks for all your help to both, right, leading
We're
the
getting there,
policies
yeah.
and starting to move the needle there. Thank you for that. Old business, we have LMS Solar on the agenda this evening, and just as a quick update from my side, the superintendent and I have had some email communications with Dynamic Grid and Kay, the owner of Dynamic Grid, who's been doing a lot of the solar panel work at the middle school. Superintendent O'Connell, at the board direction at our June meeting, Superintendent O'Connell signed the contract that the board authorized that was
Yeah.
not performed by our former superintendent, so you got the lucky signature on that one. Thank you for getting that done.
Yeah, no problem.
We are, as mentioned to the board previously, I am keeping a pulse and staying very close on that project. I have heard that all of the panels have been formally or physically installed on the building now, so all 880 are on the roof and wired. Additional wiring is occurring now and over the next couple of weeks. The superintendent and I are having an in-person meeting with Dynamic Grid on July 17th, just to get a walkthrough and more of a specific update on where things stand with the connectivity to the big power box that's being installed, etc. I did receive a picture. I haven't circulated this to the board, but I'll just quickly show you. Right on the back of the school, there's a large number of conduit. There's going to be a big combiner box that's going to go here, where all the wires kind of go together, and then we'll connect ultimately to the battery
Good.
unit. Right, so lots of work continuing there over the summer. Any other updates?
No, that was it. We got that meeting next week, which looking forward to meeting Kay in person. So.
All right. In addition to that, I know I had sent you a question just on the rear doors to Campbell High School.
Yep, got an update on that.
Okay, so I was driving by the school and I noticed the rear doors have not been replaced yet, which the board authorized, so.
Yeah, so we reached out to Lang, who's doing the doors. They're gonna try and be here in the last week of July. They're working on their contractors to get the physical doors so they can install them in that last week of July. They promised us no later than the first week of August, so we will see. They did work for us in Bow, and they always got through with their work, and it wasn't an issue or anything, so I do anticipate it not being an issue. I would like them done, though, just to get
Yeah.
that done.
Yeah.
So I will keep the board updated. Hopefully, at the August 7th meeting, I will be able to tell you that they are done.
All right,
So.
sounds good. Another standing item under old business was board goals, and I know, Superintendent O'Connor, you're just getting kind of your groundings here.
Yeah.
But one of the things that is up for a refresh this year is the goals and objectives.
Yep.
That the board will review. This has been moved to old business now for the past several meetings, mainly because we wanted a fresh perspective. We wanted, quite frankly, your perspective.
Yeah.
Right, and to work with the administration and to kind of have that roll up and be part of what the goals are here. I think some of them are still very relevant, but really interested in your fresh perspectives on those goals.
Yeah, so how do you want to approach that? I've worked with different boards on goals, not necessarily directly with me all the time, but, contributing as part of that. are you looking for guidance? Are you looking to come up with your own boards, collaboration on that? I say that because one of the ways that I've approached these type of building goals, district goals, is in kind of three buckets, right? You have your operations, you have your student services, and then you have your academic pieces. And then you can kind of funnel goals out of that. Obviously, not everything falls exclusively, or there's overlap between those areas. But that's been a way to kind of help give structure to goals that can then carry through at the different levels, the district level and then the building levels. So if we want to think of those goals in that kind of framework and then kind of follow that up, that's also how the SAU kind of leadership is set up, right? We have a curriculum person for academics, we have a student services person for students, and then we have the business administrator for that operations piece. So it then kind of gives like focus and kind of direction for different people. And then in terms of the actual writing, I've seen boards take a whole board meeting and not necessarily on the scheduled agenda, but set one up and post it and then do that work together as a group. I've seen boards ask the superintendent to essentially write the goals and then collaborate with that in a different setting. I'm kind of open to whatever perspective or what kind of direction you want to kind of take those type of things. I've not worked with like a 3-year goal cycle like this before. Usually it's just been 1-year goals, so I'm kind of excited to see something that can guide us for multiple years here. So that would be nice to see something that can go, for multiple kind of 3 years. That's a nice window for me.
So when I happened to be elected to the board 3 years ago in March, so I came in on a cycle where we were just coming up with the goals that were here, the 21 to 24 goals. The way that was done then, and it doesn't necessarily mean the way that it has to be done, was with a board retreat. So it was a board meeting with all of the admin staff, all of the principals, where we sat down and we were sort of able to have a conversation openly and honestly about where we're struggling, where we need to improve, what we're doing well at, and I think I imagine the framework for most schools probably falls under those three buckets. I think we have 5 goals just based off of the way that it was done, but I think they fall into those 3 buckets if that's how it's chosen to be done. So for me, I mean, I'm happy to do it in public for a board meeting if we wanted to, spend a couple hours strategizing. My concern with that is that when we're getting into personnel issues, which may or may not come up as part of the discussions of any struggles, when we're getting into privacy issues with students that for special education or whatnot that may not be able to be public. I think our conversation is more broad and limited in a public setting than it would be in a private setting. However, I want to make sure that we're following policy, and I want to make sure that, we certainly are not, the goal isn't to have it be a secret, but the goal is to have it be productive. So my thought would be to have another board retreat similar to that, where we can work on our goals, obviously share them in their draft form at public meetings and explain where they come from, but to be able to have some of the dialogue, I think would be helpful. But that's my thought. Or maybe we just have 2 board members do it where it's not considered a quorum, who can work on the drafting piece of it and the retreat part of it, attending an admin meeting, and then bring it more forward for a public view. I don't know, I'm throwing out different ideas, but I think a strategy session, a working session would be helpful for a couple of hours that are dedicated to the topics, because I want to, while the goals may remain the same, what's the priority level for them? Is facilities higher than curriculum? Is it, grades are higher? I'm looking to you and your staff to kind of help weigh in on that as well. Those are my thoughts.
Before I comment, I'll turn it over to the other board members.
I was also on the board when we came up with the past 3 year the 3-year goals that we just ended with, and I thought that was the way that we did it was very productive. We had input from each of the schools by talking to the admins, and then I think once we came together to determine where we need to focus our efforts, I think we had very good buy-in from each of the admins at that point, because they had, worked as part of the process. It wasn't us saying, these are the things that you guys need to do, in order to get us where we want to be as a district. It was a much more collaborative process.
So I kind of like the idea of superintendent meeting with his admin team and coming forward with something as a jumping off point. And then kind of go back and forth on a retreat or whether it should be public or not, honestly. It's, but I understand the concern about personnel issues and specific student issues. So for you to get your message from your team, and what they're looking for, and maybe you're gonna get more direct information than we might get as a larger group. That a smaller group might feel more comfortable saying, yeah, I think it really ought to be this. So maybe I'm kind of a meld of the two.
I think I'm kind of in the middle between both of you,
Yeah.
actually, right? I think it's like, I'd like to see something to react to initially,
Yep.
to help start the conversation, but I'm also sensitive to definitely, non-public information being shared and how we need to be really careful with what we can say and share. And I'm wondering if it's just simply a non-public meeting and use the term retreat, right? Call it a non-public meeting.
Whatever we want to do.
Right, and, that way we can have an open discussion, and the reason for that also is superintendent has a lot of new staff. And we need to give a forum for the staff to be able to share freely with the board, and the board to share freely back, and just kind of hash out some of the pain points that we've had over the past year
Agreed.
plus.
Yep,
So in my mind, I'd like to drop the word retreat
that's fine.
and use it as a non-public meeting, to kind of iron this out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I truly don't care what it's called.
I
I just,
know.
that.
But the retreat has
Yeah.
whole
I
other
understand.
Different, has a
Yeah.
different connotation.
Yes.
I get it, and it's not something, I just wanna make sure that we're having that conversation as a group in a way that is open and honest and constructive and productive, rather than, shielding and, maybe a little bit more, I don't know, filtered.
But with the non-public meetings, obviously there's notes and minutes taken, those
Sure.
are read into public, right? It's just a
Absolutely.
little bit more of a formal process.
And the document itself is gonna be public, what we
Yep.
come up with and where we
Yeah.
go and what our goals are. I think all of that conversation is gonna be reflective in the final product, because if we're in here saying that this is our top priority, I mean, I think that people can read between the lines and say, okay, well, that's clearly where we're struggling and we need a little more time there, so,
And I think you can come out of that non-public meeting and still have an opportunity at a public meeting to review goals and then
Sure.
formally accept them and stuff like
And
that.
I'm curious what your
Yeah.
survey results yield
Yeah.
too,
Yeah,
because,
I'm
some
curious.
of those
Yeah.
students,
start.
parents,
Yeah.
they have that feedback to come in and say, here's where I think the district is struggling, or here's where I think more time needs to be put in.
Yeah.
My third
Well,
grader's really gonna do a great job responding to
I know, that's right. Again, that's the high
She
school.
has lots of opinions. I think she'll do great.
I'm actually very curious on how I can imagine sitting with my daughter and asking her like,
Yeah.
all right, Lily, what did you like? The first thing she'll say is our teacher. Like that will literally be probably 1, 2, and 3, but then
Yeah.
like digging down a little bit more and stuff. So I think that's a nice plan. Maybe we can set up. I can work on that and set up
Yeah.
a time for a non-public, and we can get that all squared away and
Yeah.
posted and everything. One thing I do want to do with the goals that I think is important is when we set them as a board, and then we set them kind of as a district, is to give a little wiggle room for our buildings to work with their people on those kind of opening days before they finalize their building goals, so they can get that staff voice and that staff feedback, and buy-in from their own staff and what they're doing. So if I think we've all been in agreement, if the board has these overarching big goals, and then the buildings can kind of make them a little more specific to their homes and
Absolutely.
where it is, I think that'd be a nice process for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, so excellent. So I'll work on that, on the details, and communicate that out.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Good conversation. Next up is facilities, and I know the facilities meeting is now moved to next week, and I don't know, have you met?
We have not met since the last meeting, so there's really no new news.
Okay.
Check.
All right, moving right on to Litchfield support staff request to bargain, which I know we mentioned at our last meeting as well.
We did mention it, yep, we're ready to go, so I think, we just need to respond and set up some dates.
Would you like me to do that?
Either you or Holly, I think Holly
Yeah,
took
or
the
work
lead
with
on
the
that.
team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
last
yeah.
time. So Matt and I are the 2 board reps for that, so if we want, to set up some times, whether it be, I'm personally open to summer. I don't know if that's when people wanna meet or not. If they would rather meet in the fall, that's fine too with me. I understand, so, but I think the sooner we negotiate, the sooner we get this done, the better we have an idea of what our numbers are as we head into budgeting season.
Excellent. We'll work on that.
All right. Moving into manifest this evening, as reported, the manifest is all signed, 3 signatures on each, so we're good
Indeed.
there. And we'll move right into our second community input this evening.
You're gonna set a record.
I'm trying. All right, seeing nobody running to the mic, we'll close community input. And with that, we're going to move into a non-public session.
I don't see board comments on here. Did we cut that out?
Did you cut that out?
We did, because Renee thought that was not a permanent thing. That can be a permanent thing.
Yeah, that was a permanent thing.
Okay, no problem. Well, I'll open it up if there's any board comments, and we'll add it back onto the agenda, so.
Yeah, the only board comment I had is that typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you've been on the board longer than I have, but in August, we end up getting some type of curriculum report with data. So we have one big, I know Jake's back there cringing, one big kind of data
is Sarah,
meeting.
by the way.
Yeah, with the AP scores, with, exactly, so we can
Yeah.
see them, with the SAT scores, with the state testing for the different grades, with iReady testing, just to kind of give us this, here's your yearly annual data dump of what's happening and how we did this past year, and then what we're doing to look at it. So I don't know if August 7th is the right time to do that, or maybe it's one of the later August meetings.
Surprise.
Yeah, no. And again, so I'm not like, I just
Right,
want to put it on the radar. It does not have to be August, but I think it's helpful for us to have that
It's just a
going into
lighter
the
month before we get into September.
September. Yeah.
Budget season.
I can aim for August.
I would say maybe aim for the second meeting in August,
Second meeting's
even.
better.
Second meeting, that's better.
Yeah, that gives you more time. It gives the principals more time to put theirs
No, I
together.
already started putting it together. We
'Cause you knew
assumed
we were gonna ask.
it was
Yeah,
coming,
yeah.
So we were like,
Perfect.
yeah, let's start doing something just in case it comes up. So
Perfect.
we've already
Thank
started
you.
this.
So
I would
are
assume
we
this
back to
isn't
the
an
7th?
annual- This has been
Are
an
we back to
annual
the
report,
7th?
No, I
so there
wanted
should
to
be
get back
old
together
ones where we can
sometime.
pull and make
should,
sure we
yep.
have the right data.
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually some type of Google slide presentation with links on it that we can just kind of check at
Yeah.
different,
You can
we'll-
kind of see trends
Yep.
within the
Yeah.
past
Yeah,
5
totally.
years or
Yeah, totally makes
whatever.
sense.
Yeah.
There we go.
wanted to throw it on the radar again with the transition. That's not something either of you have had to, but it's super helpful for me, and I think the board as,
As we set goals.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially, I think that's a great point, thank you for bringing that up, and also because over the past year, we've changed like formatives and summatives, and what does all that mean, and what are we seeing in the data behind those types of changes?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of, I've been going down a rabbit hole of clicks.
Watch out, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Through it all.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
So that was my only school board comment.
All right,
Good one.
anybody else?
No.
All right, we'll move into non-public this evening, so under RSA 91A3 and specifically B and C, the hiring of any person as a public employee and matters which if discussed in public will likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than the member of the body or agency itself unless such person seeks a request to the meeting. Right, nice meeting you. With that, I'll entertain a motion
Thank
to
you.
go into non-public, please.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Plansky.
Second.
By Ms. Ames. Additional discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, that carries 4-0-0. Thank you, everyone, we'll see you August 7th. We are all set? Yep.
He's
We'll
like,
give
wait
you
a
a minute.
minute, I get my night? Are you kidding me?
Give you a minute to get everything closed up here.
Look, let's do that. Let's make this. I know they won't all like
Yeah.
this, but it's great.